Liberal Viewer presents.
So with this upcoming ABC docudrama on September 11th, there's been a lot of talk about what Bill Clinton was doing to secure America. Personally, having read the 9/11 Commission report, I don't blame Clinton or Bush for September 11th. It's too easy in hindsight. Though, as Bill Maher pointed out on Friday,
Bill Clinton really did concentrate a lot on trying to get Osama bin Laden. He had a meeting a week on Osama bin Laden, and Bush had none before 9/11.
And serendipitously, I was collecting some old video for a project and found this statement of the partisan Democrat position from November 1999.
But I'd like to remind you that it's November of 1999 and not November of 1989. The Berlin Wall is down 10 years. The Cold War is over. With no major enemy in the world, why do we need to spend more money on defense? Why, when we already have a defense budget that is 10 times greater than any other country in the world, do we need to spend more money on defense?
The world's a dangerous place. Yeah, I'm not one to sit here and think that we can cut defense any more than we have. I think we can have, we need to do things reasonably. We don't need to go out and pay the $800 screwdrivers and that kind of foolishness and things that we can't do. But I'll tell you what, there's two periods in history. That's periods of war and the period between wars. And we just happen to be fortunate enough to be in the period between wars. That don't mean that we're not going to go to a period of war. We have a lot of responsibility. We have a lot of prosperity in this country. We have a lot of things, but we have a lot of responsibility. And I think that we have to be within reason. We have to be prepared to meet this responsibility. I don't think we have to be silly about it. I don't think we ought to be wasteful about it. But I think that we got to stand up. I think we had a responsibility in Kosovo. I think we discharged that responsibility and discharged it rather effectively. I think we have responsibilities around the world. And I'm not that, probably less than, I'll let him speak for himself, but I am not I'm a free speech, free trade, pro-defense Democrat. I believe people ought to say what they got to say. I ain't for shutting any speech now, and I think people ought to be able to buy what they want to buy, and I think that we got to be ready to meet reasonable obligations around the world. I'm no isolationist.
To interject, who do we need to defend ourselves against?
Well, I mean, you could first of all, we need to defend these people in Kosovo. Yeah, I don't know. I can't tell you what's going to happen in China. I can't tell you what's going to happen between India and Pakistan. I can't tell you any of the things. I mean, I can't tell you what's going to happen in the former Soviet Union and these republics. I can't tell you what's going to happen in Russia. I mean, I'm not clear on that. I mean, do I think somebody? I don't know. But I know that history teaches me to be cautious about this stuff, and I think we need a reasonable defense that is at the president's disposal to use as these crises arrive. And I think that we about hit the point that we're about as low as we need to go. We ought to look at a way to reasonably. We don't, like I say, we don't need to go back to the goofy days when we just were throwing money at it, but where we can reasonably build our defenses back up. And I just make the point, if you think that because communism is dead, that our obligations in the world have somehow or another just dissipated, I just disagree with you.
So the Harvard audience didn't come off so great, though I've never been a fan of Harvard, boola boola. But Carville looks pretty good. My favorite part is his slogan,
I'm a free speech, free trade, pro-defense Democrat.
I think free speech, free trade, and pro-defense describe my position too. Of course, to see why I think Bush's Iraq policy is not pro-defense, watch my video, Does Bush Know Who is in Charge of Strategy? So, does anyone else accept liberal values like free speech, free trade, and a strong defense? And does anyone really believe the Clinton crowd was soft on defense before September 11th?
YouTube, you decide.